ねえ、君。
How's it going, everyone? My name's Austin, and I just saw Suzume. Suzume, is that the name of the movie? Hang on, now I'm kind of curious. I don't really think I cared for this movie whatsoever, which is so weird because I went into this movie like, oh my gosh, I saw Your Name. It was the only film I saw from that director, to be honest, and I thought it was amazing. I thought it was visually stunning. Every frame was a work of art. Same here with this movie. Every frame was literally a work of art. However, this movie, how do you say it? Like, it's as wide as an ocean, but as deep as a puddle. Like, I think about the movie and my brain just shuts off like that. And because the creator behind this movie, he's made some pretty good work from what I've heard and from what I've seen. Unlike a movie I've recently seen, Are You There, God? It's Me, Margaret. That movie basically resonated with me on a very personal level, whereas this movie went against everything my core believes in. It was the opposite. Like, it was the yin to my yang. All of the characters are just so one-dimensional, and it really impacts and impedes the film drastically. Some side characters, those characters were the ones I personally cared about. The little kitty cat you see in the trailers, probably my favorite character. I think that if this movie followed that cat, that character, it would have been a much more interesting movie with a much more interesting end.
猫を探して九州から今からたくさん人が死ぬ
Is it Suzume, I think. Suzume. I'm just going to go with that. I'm not even going to look it up because at this point, I don't care because this movie, the writers, I don't think they cared. They just wanted that McDonald's money. And if you guys ever see the film, you will understand what that means. Suzume, what is it about? It's about this young 17-year-old girl living in a rural town in Japan, and she comes across this boy on the way to school one day who is looking for doors inside of ruins. And so she's like, hey, check out this place. And that's where the movie starts, and the story kind of continues on from there. If I get more into it, it goes heavily into spoiler territory because this movie it's so one-dimensional, as I mentioned. The story, it's so flat. I understand what they were trying to do here, but I think that they tripped and fell and they landed on their keyboard and they said, okay, let's go with this plot. I think this works. And I believe the animators were just like, we worked our butts off for this script. Oh my God. I mean, the more I talk about this movie, the more I just realize just how much I dislike it. I don't know how to feel about that. It's kind of interesting because I don't really think that we've talked about a movie like this on this channel ever before. And I guess we're doing something new here. A movie Austin doesn't like. Weird, right? So after meeting this guy who's looking for ruins and doors and whatever, this girl, the main character, Suzume, that's her name. It's the name of the movie. She immediately, instantaneously falls in love. It's one of those movies, a love at first sight kind of movie, which just, let's keep promoting that ideology. That's not going to lead to any long-term issues. It doesn't work that way. The whole movie, it kind of relies on that feeling, on that emotion of love. And in the first, I don't know, like 75% of the movie, you don't really feel it. You don't really understand it between these two characters. It doesn't feel like a love story. The one thing I don't like about the animation, and this is just a little nitpick, is like the fact that their hair is so fine and sharp, and then like in some scenes, their hair becomes bubbly and watery. There's a Full Metal Alchemist movie that kind of has the same artistic integrity to it, and I can't get behind it. The flow, the way they look compared to their manga counterparts, to the rest of the films or to the rest of the franchise, they just look completely different, and that's how this movie made me feel. Speaking of all the weird things that happen throughout this film, something happens to one of the lead characters. Is he even a lead character? Oh, I don't even know because this movie just hurts my brain. But so something happens to make this character a lot more interesting. And later throughout the movie, he runs into a few issues to where he has to problem solve in his current predicament on how to get around those problems. And it served quite an interesting point, and I was actually really engaged with the movies in those scenes. But by the end, I completely lost interest in that character based on where they went from the beginning of the movie to the end. Nothing just really makes sense. The characters that they personally know, they just kind of get thrown in. It's all really muddied, especially with a lot of the dialogue. They kind of go back on a few things that they say, and it's like, okay, well, that didn't make sense. You're just lying to be there for the plot, and it's a little weird. And those are the characters that I mentioned before that I actually really liked. Those were the characters I grasped onto. Because I'm struggling to find things I enjoyed about this movie, I think I should speak about this one scene in particular I really enjoyed. It was this possession scene where someone gets possessed by a god or a demon, and the gods and the demons, they turn out to be something else. And anyways, they get possessed and they reveal a few things about their character. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so interesting. How is this going to impact the story? And it impacts the story for like, I don't know, 20 seconds, and then things just kind of go back to the way they were. And I'm like, okay, but that scene could have drastically changed the character development. It could have drastically changed the plot, where each character was going, what they were thinking, how they feel. Like, this could have made such a big moment in the story. And they just kind of like tossed it to the side. And I was very just in disbelief watching that unfold, because they struck gold with that scene and they just decided, no, we're not going to use that anymore. But granted, we're trying to talk about things I enjoy about this movie. So the setup of that scene was what I enjoyed. And some of those side characters with their dialogue interwoven into the plot, they kind of seemed to have more of a love interest than the main two characters, which is kind of sad on the writing part, because how do you flop that hard to where I care more about these B characters getting together than I do about the A characters? But I kind of enjoyed it at the same time. I'm like, I'm kind of rooting for those guys over there. I'm more invested in this side of the story. Throughout the movie, they go from like place to place to place to place. And, you know, movies, they do that. And every time you progress throughout a film, you kind of learn more a little bit throughout the film. Like the directors, the writers, they kind of sprinkle something on just for the audience to kind of be like, this movie just kind of tells you straight up everything at the beginning. And then you're just bored for about, I don't know, 50% of it, just waiting for something else to happen. And it doesn't. And there's no sprinkles to follow along. And you don't really understand if the characters are learning anything from their experiences throughout the entirety of the film, because who they are at the end of the film, they're the same at the beginning of the film. So now I want to talk about the mystical side of things and those characters, because they serve to be some of the more interesting characters, from their art design to the actions they took throughout the film and the consequences that led up to those actions. That was so interesting to me, and I wanted to see more of these really mystical creatures and know what else they could do. I wanted to know the rules behind their universe and know what they can and can't do. I wanted to explore the lore of this film, but unfortunately, like everything else in the story, it's just pushed to the side. It doesn't really have anything to do with the overall plot of the film, which the rest of the film, it's very dry. Thank you guys so much for watching my review, my rant, I guess, on this film, because it was a movie, I think. Anyways, guys, if you guys liked the video, be sure to leave a like down below, a comment as well. All the engagement helps. We are trying to get up our watch time on all of our YouTube videos, so please go ahead and check out some of our other movie reviews. I promise I'm not always this big of a negative Nancy. Guys, with all the YouTube jargon out of the way, my name's Austin, and I will see you guys in the next one. Take care.
いってらっしゃい。いってらっしゃい。
いってらっしゃい。
いってらっしゃい。行ってきます。